Is it actually possible at this point, now in the month of July, this is the month of the Republican convention, the Democratic convention is literally next month, is it actually feasible and possible for the Democrat Party to move Biden to one side, or has that ship effectively sailed?
Vivek, first, thanks for having me. It is incredibly simple at this stage of the game to replace Biden as the Democratic nominee for president. Let me say, you're brave, frankly, for even having this conversation, for going where many in conservative circles are simply refusing to go. They're engaging in this wishful thinking where they actually believe that a vegetable is going to must be the Democratic nominee for president. That's simply not the case. There are many ways along the path by which Biden can be swapped out as the nominee.
So like what? Like, how exactly would they do it?
Sure. So where people get it wrong is assuming that the Democrats have a nominee at this point. Where we are in the process is that the primaries have merely elected delegates who will go to the convention and choose the nominee. So here are the ways that this could actually happen. First off, Biden may never make it to the convention in the first place. There could be a different nominee put forward. And so much of the narrative has been, well, all of these delegates that came out of the primary process are pledged, must vote for Biden as the Democratic nominee. Under the Democrats' own rules, that's not the case. In fact, the rules, and I'm reading right here, delegates to the National Convention pledged to a presidential candidate shall in all good conscience reflect the sentiments of those who elected them. Now, that's very different than the way the RNC rules read, which say that a delegate is bound to the candidate who sent them there on the first ballot. So under the DNC's own rules, delegates don't even have to vote for Biden. And we'll know by the night before the vote to actually select the nominee whether there's another candidate that's going to be put forward. That's the first way.
It's possible, right? I mean, I think that's actually one of the people, this idea of the delegates or whatever being pledged. The whole procedure and the ritual exists. Turns out not just a ritual, we've treated it as one. But it turns out actually even since the 70s, they've been running open conventions, right? Where the nominee was decided at the convention in the first place. And this could be revitalizing a tradition that's long existed in American history. Isn't that right?
That's right. Yeah. We go back to the 68 convention, which ironically was also held in Chicago. And what you saw there was a floor fight. That was the one where Lyndon Johnson pulled out, decided not to run. He announced that in March of that election year. So there was a little bit of time for things to play out. You saw Bobby Kennedy come forward as a candidate. And you saw actually McCarthy come forward as a candidate. But then, during the process, it was Hubert Humphrey, who the Democratic elite basically said, this is going to be the candidate. So everybody line up and vote for Hubert Humphrey. We could see something like that again.
Yeah, I have my thoughts on what's coming, but so legally and mechanically, it's possible. I actually thought it was pretty interesting to bring Paul on because Paul is, for those people who don't know him, not some, right winger, Republican, partisan or anything like this. I know him from college. I don't know how you describe yourself, Paul, but certainly not Republican, certainly not some sort of, standard political conservative. But I thought it'd be interesting to get your perspective, including from the vantage point of American history. What does it mean when you have a party that for this long has attested that this man is fit to serve? You saw the number of times it was dismissed, even to the Democratic Party's own base when this concern was raised. Just in a historical context, in the context of American history, how meaningful is it if he does now get swapped out after all of those attestations? And I just love your own personal perspective on whether you think that actually is something that should happen, speaking as an American citizen and a voter in this country.
Well, first of all, to answer your final question, I think he has to be replaced. I think it is a bit farcical to imagine that we're going to 4 more years of this, that our enemies abroad have seen this and are going to not take advantage of his incapacity. And I think fundamentally, it's something where the Democratic Party has really put itself forward as saying, we're about preserving these norms in American life. We're about ensuring the stability of the country. This is not stable. This is not something that can be sustainable over the course of the next election cycle, but forget about the next election cycle. It's not sustainable now. I think fundamentally people are worried. I think a lot of people who believed the narrative that the media had been pushing for a long time about his mental state are disillusioned and shocked. And I think fundamentally, if a political party exists for anything, it's to win elections. And I think they see that he's really at this point compromised to the point where I don't think it's realistic that he's going to be the winner. So yes, a floor fight and a convention dispute is going to be messy. I think there's a lot of risk that it entails, but I think there's a lot of risk with the current status quo. And I think fundamentally, any party that's operating under the assumption that they want to win, they can't continue on the current path that they're on.